that was a very abundant time. That was an apex of society. You know, these cold times come in and we squeeze and we go into the dark ages and things contract. I mean, everything contracts. Population of the planet, economy, invention, art, literature, it all contracts. There's just too much worried about trying to get food on your plate.
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum, and the media overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time: cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the Grand Solar Minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne.
They've completely squeezed us into this very, very short time to think about. Every climate debate's very short amount of time. Talk about the Younger Dryas. 11,500 years ago or so, when temperatures dropped 10 degrees Celsius and then they rose just as quickly, like 10 degrees C rise in a decade or less. They don't want to ever talk about that because, you know, they're talking about a tenth of a degree here or something, but a whole full 10 degrees Celsius so quickly. And you have to think about it. What if you knew? So my whole thing is these explorers that went out over the last, let's say 500 years ago, you know, what they have told us is they destroyed, burned, chipped away, broke, or just dropped off the ship, everything that was not Christian related. See, I can't believe that. I believe more that they would have packed everything up and sent it back to the Vatican or other types of bodies at that time. Kings may have sent out private conquistadors to go look, but I believe they know the cycles. Now, imagine if you were a world government body and you knew the squeeze point was coming right now. Like, how would you try to keep, A, the continuity of government together, B, your power structure in the pyramid together, and then C, not panic everybody that they would cause artificial shortages before the actual real problem comes in about 2 to 3 years from now or less? How would you try to keep it all moving down without the wheels falling off before, the real price rises come? And this is what I'm getting at is here. I think it's purposefully constructed. What you're keeping was with this news distraction in the media, getting us to fight each other in so many ways, shapes, and forms, to keep us completely distracted from what you're talking about and others are, this 400-year cycle in the sun that's going to squeeze our cultures. And I'll leave it there. I've been rambling.
Yeah, no, I think what I would do to start, I would remove subsidies immediately from any energy industry that's getting them, because everything should be on a level playing field. And I would make a point to make sure that people at least see it on mainstream media. They see it. You know, they're informed throughout media outlets about how to have an indoor garden, how to grow their own food, how to really take care of themselves during a period where, you know, you're going to have food prices rising. And, you know, tell people if you can afford it, then okay, you can afford it. But if you can't and you don't want to pay for it, you know, here's some other ways to do it. And obviously not everybody would be able to all pay the high rising food prices. But, you know, that's why you got to inform people. There's got to be some kind of, like, people have to be aware of any potential cliff in front of them that they might not see, regardless of how high that cliff is. And, like, people might debate the severity of the Grand Solar Minimum. They might debate the severity of global warming, all this different stuff. And that's okay to debate the severity of it, but you still have to have people educated about what to do when it comes in some fashion or form. I guess if I ran a government, I'm trying to keep it together. I mean, I would do that, and I would probably look to, well, I mean, if you remove energy subsidies and whatnot, then you don't have that land, growing corn for ethanol. It's now growing other food. And I don't know. I would probably see where the problem works out to there and make a decision going forward from there.
And this episode's brought to you by TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds since 1974. Full range of garden seeds, microgreen seeds, sprouting seeds, wheatgrass, grain seeds, flower seeds, herb seeds, and ground cover crop. I encourage you to take a look at their website, TrueLeafMarket.com, and they even have free starter guides there for you to learn how to grow sprouts, microgreens, herbs, and wheatgrass. Use the link below and give yourself the gift of organic and heirloom seeds.
Yeah, that brings me to the point there you mentioned. You hit the nail on the head. The rising food prices when a segment of population cannot afford it. So let's think about any country. It doesn't have to be the U.S. It could be anywhere. The bottom 10% of money earners in a country are going to be priced out of the market so quickly that they're only going to resort to social upheaval to try to get food, because even with the EBT program or some kind of subsidy here in the U.S., your food prices double or triple. Even with EBT cards, it's still not going to be enough to cover basic necessities. So if you're talking about unemployed, underemployed, people who are relying on subsidies from government, they're not going to be able to make it when these food prices rise up. So then what are they going to do? And that might be part of the reason, for the police state buildup over these last, almost 20 years now, due to the fact that they could have blamed it on terrorism and 9/11, et cetera. But what if truly that was just a mask, a cover for putting the police state in place, because they knew all of these social upheaval events would happen when the food prices skyrocket and these lower segments of society can't afford it. They're going to be the first ones to get tweaked and start throwing fists and Molotov cocktails. There's a method behind the madness, and I really have I don't know. I'm starting to see through a lot more things lately.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the concerns with the Middle East over the last probably decade. It was the global warming crowd making this argument, but it was as global warming gets worse and things, the climate gets worse and there's food shortages and all of this, which doesn't really make sense because the food shortages don't line up with global warming. They were saying that these kind of resource scarcities in the Middle East will lead to more terrorism because people will be fighting over resources, back to the jungle mentality. People are living beings. They resort to that kind of thing when they're placed in a life or death scenario. It's tough. It's a very tough situation to be in.
Yeah, the changes in the sun, the vibration frequency changing as well. People behaving differently. Not only are there more cosmic rays, but the actual energy density coming off of our sun is a little bit different with the UV changes, etc. You feel like people are just spinning out of control. Things just seem suddenly different. You just can't put your finger on it. What's going wrong? But everywhere you look, there's something weird or strange or bizarre happening. And, a lot of people are trying to put their finger on it, and they can't just put it on a single event. It seems to be literally in the air around you. I don't know if you feel the vibrational changes. There is so much change happening, and old systems are trying to cling to a new frequency they can't hold on to. It's like the worlds are splitting here. It's an incredible feeling to witness, as well as, to see it unfolding and know the reasons why it's unfolding. This is an important part of it.
It's great to see a channel like yours covering more of the climate side of things and things going on in that front. And, I'm covering more on the media front, but it's all about getting people educated and just uncovering the truth of things and getting to the bottom of a lot of the crack climate scientists and whatnot that are out there just trying to, get their next research grant. There's so much corruption. There's the swamp. It's on all fronts. There's just dead wood that needs to be burned off.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, you said you traveled out west and took a little bit of time going out through the farmlands. Did you have a chance to talk to any farmers, and did they know about the Grand Solar Minimum, or are they talking about the weather's being strange? What did you hear in the farmlands as you were traveling through? I know you talked with a fair few people, so what were the reports on the ground literally about these changes that are being seen across the planet, but more locally in those states that you went through?
I talked with a guy in Colorado who's lived there for, he said, the last 40 or so years, and he's probably early 40s maybe. I don't know, around that. I didn't get his actual age, but he looked to be about early 40s. He was saying that he's noticed that the glaciers up on the mountain seem to have deteriorated over the last 40 years. And what was interesting to me was to notice that Colorado is below the 45-degree latitude line. And it seems like the average temperature in Colorado is going up, but the problem is they're also having more of a drought issue in certain parts of Colorado, specifically southern Colorado. So I talked to the guy in Colorado, and when I was up in Washington, I met with a farmer, and I was talking with him, and I actually contacted him through email. I brought up the Grand Solar Minimum. He said he wasn't really aware of it. So, I mean, I told him, what I knew about it at the time, and he was basically saying that there's more of a need now for crop insurance, or there's more crop insurance claims really coming out. They're pretty in tune to what's going on with other farms. And I mean, you've had dairy farms shut down. That was remarkable to me that there were dairy farms that were shutting down. I think that was in Montana. It was 100 since the beginning of the year that have just shut down. I mean, you have to wonder, like, it's the dairy industry, but the cows still have to eat the grass that's around them, and the farmers still have to get feed for them. And it's like, when it's not worth it anymore, people just don't do it. Farms of all types are struggling out in that area of the country. And it's pretty evident just driving on the highways, the interstate highways, because you can see so much just dead plant material. And then you have, little, like I was saying, little patches of green.
Yeah, I talked to Anita Bailey, and she was saying the same thing. Anybody who was raising cattle, they couldn't afford it anymore because they were trucking in hay from other states to try to feed these animals, and it became too cost prohibitive because of droughts or floods. It's both. It's both. It's not just one or the other. But, she said there's an enormous amount of flood of new cattle going into the beef market. So, beef prices may appear to be going down at the moment, counterintuitive to what you think. But the reason the prices are going down is what you just said. People are selling off their herds. They can't afford to keep them anymore. And there's this glut at the moment, but you got to realize behind that there's at least 3 years of shortages now on any types of cattle, because by the time they bear children and you raise those up to where they're even producing milk, or they're going to be, large enough to take for meat slaughter, I mean, you're looking at years for this. Now everybody's just selling all their mature animals down into slaughterhouses or off to other farmers that are, what we consider mega farms. So the average small farmer is selling off all their herds at the moment. Now, I heard goat farmers are doing quite well because goats are easy to keep. They just kind of eat anything and they produce milk, and they'll eat literally kudzu as well. They love kudzu. Think about that. Now, if all these herds are sold off, dairy, what's it going to come to when there's no more for of these larger animals to either get meat for or get milk from? Where do we go now? What's the next step down then? Are we going to use llamas? Am I going to get llama milk or something? I mean, where does it go? We're going to all convert over to goat milk? I mean, is that the direction it's going to go, with unstable grow patterns for fields full of hay? Are we going to move to goats, and then we're going to have a goat milk-based society like they do in the Middle East or other parts of the world? I'm not sure, but you're seeing it as well, the selling off of the herds.
Yeah, I wouldn't be totally shocked if, we move away from cow milk, because the thing with cows, too, is that they consume huge amounts of water. And when you have them out on the western half of the U.S., they just don't have that kind of water. Like, they're going through a drought period. For every pound of beef, it's roughly 5 gallons of water that it took to get that pound of beef. And cows drink some insane amount of gallons per day. It's around like 50 gallons a day or something. It's insane. And I mean, when you have that kind of extra expense, you're going to have people just closing up shop, and that market is going to move somewhere else. I think largely people are just going to have to start doing without, not even luxuries, but like non-necessities that they're used to having. And I don't know. I think as a whole, we're going to see that in quite a few different industries.
Oh, heretic, Ben, you heretic. People are not going to psychologically be able to stay with it if they can't get their fix of instant gratification. OMG. What's going to happen? People are going to start freaking if they can't get goods, Talk about rationing, the big R word. Oh, no. What's going to happen if they're rationing anything? People are absolutely psychologically going to freak out because they've never dealt with it even once in their life. It's been multi-generations. We've never had to deal with this in the States. Europe, a little bit different. They've dealt with the rationing, World War II. It's kind of still within a grandparent or a, third generation back. People have been used to rationing, even up into the 50s, 60s.
And since I have been talking about our need moving forward in this new society that we're entering as our global grain production starts to be reduced in yield, your food prices are going to skyrocket. And I mean skyrocket, not just doubling or tripling, something like 5 or 10 times higher by 2020 at the very least. TrueLeafMarket.com. I really want to talk about growing your own food, which will be a necessity moving forward. They've been around since 1974, heirloom and organic seeds. Since I've started talking about them in my videos, I have a lot of people write and say that they've previously ordered, that they know the owner, having great results, good customer service. They quite enjoyed the seed quality as well. And there's so many ways that we can go about growing different types of vegetables that we're going to need. Microgreens are incredibly nutritious. They're super fast to grow. In less than a week, you can have something that you can eat. And we know the benefits of microgreens. All you have to do is use a search engine and look up vitamin, mineral, nutrient content of microgreens. You'll be shocked. Also, sprouts. We can get those a little bit taller, a little more dense, a little bit larger volume on the vegetation mass coming off of there. So how do you know what kind of sprouts to grow? How about wheatgrass or herbs? What about different types of herbs that we can add to our foods? Now, what I just described to you, there's a full range of starter guides there at TrueLeafMarket.com for you to take a look at. Even if it's just for your own knowledge and you don't purchase something from them, at least get the information so you know how to grow microgreens, you know how to grow sprouts, you understand what some of the herbs are for. And not only that, they have wheatgrass and grain seeds. So when I'm talking about grain growing regions going offline, we just need to look back in history and see where across the planet there was difficulty growing grains when this grand solar minimum intensified and the jet stream started wandering just like they're doing today due to a decreased magnetosphere that does not hold our jet streams locked in their traditional flows. Grains are one thing, herb seeds are another, cover crops, something different, but whatever you do, organic seeds are going to be a necessity because you can save those seeds and then grow them the next season, which you unequivocally cannot do with GMO. TrueLeafMarket.com. Use the link below and give yourself the gift of organic and heirloom seeds.
But in the States, we haven't had that. What is going to happen when we start rationing food? People are going to freak, and I don't even know what's going to kick off the rationing, but it's going to be something just like this. There are people who are not going to be used to or even accept that they can't get thing A, B, or C, that's not even an option to not have it. There's going to be a lot of psychological problems moving forward with the scarcity as well. Or it could be abundance, depending on if you can provide that service or that good. You could have, you could be right in the center of it. And that's where your value play is and where your opportunity is. If something disappears in one place, what can you provide or bring together as a service, or what value can you get so people can maybe get something close to that back again?
Yeah, I mean, one of the industries that I'm looking at pretty closely, just waiting for it to collapse and for people to freak out, is the auto industry. I mean, can you imagine if people actually had to pay the market price for cars? You would have such an incredibly small percentage of people compared to what it is now that would actually be able to afford a car. And one of the issues when you have that kind of subsidizing of an industry like that, and this is just the auto industry for an example, what ends up happening is you have people who are now able to work farther away from home, and then they're using up more gas to get to work, and the government's building the roads, and all of this stuff is subsidized, and there's no market back pressure. And I think that you're going to see multiple industries start to really struggle as like the legs get kicked out from under these industries, and those legs would be the subsidies and the tax dollars that just get funneled to these programs and these industries. And I don't know, that the legs are going to get kicked out and people are going to have to face reality. I think there will certainly be things that are a necessity that go up in price, but I think what people are really going to start to miss are the cars and the more luxury items.
Yeah, you talked about a basic necessity item there. Rainfall is illegal to harvest in some states. Example, Oregon, you went up through there. It's illegal for you to harvest rainwater off the roof because they say that actually drains down into a basin that then they can charge water rights for. And by you just collecting that off your roof, they've already allotted those number of square yards or square meters into the rainfall or the rainflow and the rainfall runoff and drainage count per cubic meter that you're actually stealing from the state because they can't sell that. So when you're talking about even outlawing the most basic of the basic, you know, when you talk about food and water and air, you know, water is number 2. You don't breathe for 5 or 6 minutes, you'll die, but you don't drink water for 3 days, you're going to die. Food, you can go weeks. It's crazy that the second most important thing for human existence itself is now deemed illegal to even pull off of your own private property. Oh, wait, it's not really private property because you have to pay the property tax every year, and if you don't do that, they'll put a lien on your home. What else are they going to make illegal that's of your basic necessity? Are you not going to be able to grow your own food? Because we've seen these ratings with the FBI SWAT teams in organic milk farms and other kinds of farming areas, or whenever they get too big to start to really supply themselves and have an overabundance of food where they can sell in markets and they're starting to make a lot of money, it seems they get closed down magically. But these are the leaders of the community. We should be learning from them on how to expand our agriculture. But yeah, I don't know. What are we going to do when they start, saying that you can't even grow your own food? Will that be illegal? Will they have to get all your food from a government warehouse somewhere? Like, you can only do that when you can't grow your own because you can't harvest your own rainwater now. So where does it lead us? There's going to be more control coming down the pike as we get deeper into these crop losses, possible rationing in the future, for sure, increases through everything. Inflation, people are going to stop spending to go to movies and restaurants. If your food's more, you're just going to stay at home. You're going to spend more on food. So I can see a lot more rules, shall we say, in the future as this thing starts to get more serious in these next coming months and years.
Yeah, I mean, as the government just tries to gain more control over the resources that are really the lifeblood of humanity, like they're trying to take control of carbon with carbon taxes. They're trying to take control of the energy industries that if you got rid of the energy industries, there would be millions upon millions of people that would die. And when you have the government taking that over, now they're controlling that. And then you have the government taking over healthcare. It's like that's what they do. They try to move in and take over that which is most essential to the society. And it's not surprising at this point. I mean, looking back on history, I think back to Venezuela, and one of the biggest mistakes, I mean, they made a lot of mistakes, don't get me wrong, but one of the biggest was nationalizing oil. I understand why they did it, but there were a lot of better options, and all the better options include the free market. Well, thanks for having me, Dave. I got to get going, but thank you very much for having me on your radio show. I really appreciate it. This was great to get to talk to you, bounce some ideas off you. I feel like it's been forever since we talked because, I mean, that was since before I went out west. So this was nice to catch up and exchange ideas.
I see that your attitude has changed about the Grand Solar Minimum and the government intervention and the news deflections. So good to get a chance to chat again. Yeah, now remember, if you want to check out more of Ben's commentary, ideas, political analysis, the Right Media YouTube channel. And Ben, where else can they find you?
I'm on Twitter at Ben's Politics. I have BitChute. It's just The Right Media. And therightmedia.org, which is going to be revamped here soon.
Great. Thanks for your time.
This video is brought to you by our friends at TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on our planet.